and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book Reservations, no other than Miss Laura Buchwald.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Miss Laura. I'm Book 101 Review, and can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sh- Sure. I'm Laura Buchwald. I'm from New York City. I'm based there now. And the Book of Reservations is the second in my Ghost Table trilogy of books. The first one, The Coat Check Girl, came out last year, and this one came out last week. So I'm thrilled to be here talking about it.
Congratulations, Miss
Thank you.
Laura, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Thank you. So tell us, the Book of Reservations is fascinating title that suggests both
Thank
commitment and hesitation. How does the central
you.
object, the book, function within the world of Ghost Table?
So the in the Book of Reservations, the restaurant that my protagonist co-owns is going through some growing pains, and the literal reservation book, the Book of Reservations, serves as a visual reminder of how well or how poorly they're doing. So it's a source of some stress and angst. At the same time, my protagonist Josie's partner is writing a book rather reluctantly, and has great reservations about bearing his soul on the page, something a lot of writers can relate to. And it works on several levels. Some of the characters are having figuring out, coming into themselves, figuring out who they really are and what they really want and what they really don't want. And so their reservations abound as people settle more fully into themselves. So it's first literal, and then it branches out into other areas of the word reservations.
Interesting, Miss Laura. Can you describe the Ghost Table? Is it a place, a state
Sure.
of
It
being,
is a place.
mhm, a
It is.
metaphysical concept, or how does it
It
govern the
is.
rules?
Sure. So my protagonist has the ability to communicate with spirits, an ability that she was reluctant about in book one and has come to really embrace in book two. And she sets a table in her restaurant every night for her dear departed loved ones. This was inspired by a trip she took to New Orleans, which was inspired by a trip that I took to New Orleans. There's a restaurant right in the French Quarter, Muriel's of Jackson Square, that sets a table every night for their resident ghost. New Orleans has a deep tradition of haunted places and a love of their departed loved ones. So I thought that was just a really beautiful idea that this restaurant sets a table every night, and as did my character. And so she takes that back home to New York and implements that in her restaurant. And this is where she can, sometimes it's literal. She can gather with, because she can communicate with spirits, she can gather with her departed loved ones. And otherwise, it just becomes sort of a sanctuary for her, a place where she can go and meditate and, be not so alone, but be with her thoughts. And it's a cause of strife between her and her partner, because he is saddled with a very pragmatic mind and wants very little to do with the spirit world. So, like the Book of Reservations, the ghost table, it becomes this tangible symbol of some of the challenges that they face.
And Miss Laura, what is the fundamental choice or dilemma a character faces when their name appears in the Book of Reservations?
Well, for my protagonist, as I said, she's grappling with this gift of hers that she's really come to accept, which is her ability to communicate with spirits. But because it causes so much strife both at work and at home, she tries to temper it. And this becomes problematic when spirits begin reaching out to her through her ghost table because they have urgent messages for the living. So these are messages that she is uniquely positioned to deliver. She's a conduit. Uh, if she's willing to be, she's a conduit between the living and the dead. And this is incredibly challenging for her because some of the living do not want to hear from the dead or do not want to believe that such a thing is possible. So that is her fundamental challenge throughout the story, is balancing this gift with the realities of her life. I mean, not that it isn't a reality, with the other, the more tangible realities of her life, which are the living people in her life.
How would you describe the blend genres in this work? Is it ghost story, a philosophical fantasy, a mystery, or something else entirely?
That's a very good question. I don't really refer to it as a ghost story because the ghosts in it are not in question. They just are. They're fully formed characters with backstories and I feel like for something to qualify as a ghost story, there has to be a question about the existence, or often there's a question about the existence of spirits. And in this case, there is no question. This is just a part of my protagonist's being, is that she can communicate with spirits. So it is literary fiction with ghosts in it. There is a bit of mystery to it. There's certainly mystery in the first book in the trilogy. The second book, there is mystery. There's a mystery that my protagonist is trying to unravel at the same time that the reader is getting invested in it. Um, there are some romantic elements to it, but it is certainly not a romance. And it's really, though there are supernatural elements, it's really grounded in reality. So I would have a hard time classifying it in any real genre. It blends some paranormal, it blends some mystery, but it's really fiction. With elements of different genres, and um, there is a philosophical question, I suppose, if one does question whether or not there is such thing as a spirit world. For me, as the writer, I firmly believe that there is, but I know that several people who've read it have come into it with great skepticism, which of course I understand. And for them, perhaps there is a philosophical question of, is this possible? Is this real?
Is this real or fantasy? And Miss Laura on character and thematic journey. Without spoilers,
Mhm.
what is the central internal conflict your protagonist must overcome, and how it is mirrored or challenged by the external rules of the ghost table?
Okay, that's a very good question. So, as I mentioned, her real struggle is in fully embracing the fact that she has this ability in a world that doesn't always believe her. So, it's whether she fully steps into this role as a liaison between the two worlds, whether she respects the boundaries that her partner and others have put up, where they don't want anything to do with this vital part of her. Um, and that brings into question, she does communicate with spirits, but she's not a medium. She doesn't get to dictate when and where spirits will present themselves to her. So it's really this, the spirits have free will as well. So they too get to kind of toe the line between infiltrating her world and stepping back. And they certainly, there are some of the spirits in this book who know that the living people that they want to reach may be reluctant to hearing from them, so they too are towing the line that my protagonist Josie is towing.
Yes, indeed. Interesting, Miss Laura.
Thank
Does
you.
a reservation in the book represent a fate, a death, or a opportunity, or a curse? How does a different characters in the story perceive it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. Does the reservation in the book represent fate, That opportunity or a curse? How these two different
Certainly,
character?
sure, certainly not a curse. There's no sense of horror in my book. So there are no curses, there's no impending death. It's really an opportunity, I think, to to give over to something other than what we can experience with our five senses. To give over to this idea of an afterlife and a spirit community. So I yeah, I think that's really what it represents to me. And at the same time, in a very pragmatic, tangible way, the reservation book represents the success and the fate of the restaurant. Because if that reservation book remains empty, the restaurant is in trouble. As it fills up, the restaurant is doing well, and uh, the more living people there are in the restaurant, the more spirits are drawn to it.
A key theme seems to be the tension between choice and predestination. How does your story explores
Mhm.
whether we are alter what has happened reserved for us?
Let me give that a little bit of thought. Well, actually, one of the takeaways that I want people to have when they finish this book is that while we are shaped by the events of our lives, certainly, we are not defined by them. So there may be some sense of predestination in that, things happen to us, things happen to our ancestors, and they all work in tandem to shape who we are, but we are not beholden to our pasts. We're certainly not beholden to our ancestors' pasts. We, even if we have dealt with animosity and the same type of animosity over and over throughout our lives, we all, I firmly believe, and my character comes to believe, that we have the ability to change and to create our destinies in spite of what's come before.
Miss Laura, it's hard. Is it this is story about redemption, forgiveness, or unfinished business, or the courage to face what was left unsolved?
Yeah, there's definitely a theme of forgiveness and of the importance of forgiveness, not only to the person who perhaps has wronged you, but to the person offering forgiveness. That's a real road to redemption. If there are a couple of characters who need to forgive their families of origin for certain things, and they come to realize that it's not about absolving what has happened. It's not about you certainly not about forgetting, but it's about releasing the hold that the past can have on us. And in the same way, the spirits that linger in the restaurant um, need to be released from their pasts, and their way forward is by delivering these messages to Josie, the protagonist, so that it's there is, and I'm just realizing this as I'm saying it, but there is a connective theme among the spirits and the living protagonists in this story, that they need to release the hold that the past has on them in order to move forward. Whether that be to a higher spiritual plane in the case of the dead characters in my book, or whether it's just to get to a better place in life where where one isn't so mired by what is everything that has come before, and every disappointment that one has faced, and every unmet expectation that we may have had about the people closest to us, our families of origin, and ourselves and our partners. And so there's definitely yes, a theme of moving forward and redemption, and how different ways that we can arrive at those things.
What does the ghost table symbolizes for you, Miss Laura? Is it about memory, legacy, the past, or connection that outlasts death?
It is definitely to me about a connection that outlasts death. As I said, I do have a firm belief, and a healthy dose of skepticism, but I've had some very convincing experiences in my life that point to the fact that there is an afterlife and there is a spiritual world. And so to me, the ghost table, and I think to the people who implemented it for real in the restaurant in New Orleans and my characters who implemented in New York, it's really about staying connected to our departed loved ones. Um, there comes a point where they are memories, but if one does believe that energy is eternal and that, death is not the end, then it is a way to maintain connection. And, our connections with our departed loved ones are as important as our connections with those in the here and now. And I think the ghost table is a nice way to link these two very fundamental sources of connection.
Miss Laura, what was the most challenging aspect of building the rules and logic of this supernatural system while keeping the human
Mhm.
emotions relatable and real?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I did a lot of crowdsourcing in writing this. So I spoke with everybody I know who believes, who has ever had an experience, who has ever, has any sort of learning system around a spirit world. And I collected my rules from the people whom I spoke with. So there's a need to keep all of that consistent. I had a need to balance, the needs of my characters who can communicate with spirit with the needs of my characters who cannot and who do not wish to. So it's about really maintaining a belief with the absolute understanding that I don't know if I could say most of the world, but that a large percentage, of the population does not choose to believe in these things. So keeping, just the way there are rules for the living, there are rules for the dead. There's a certain order to things. And so keeping track of all of that in a way that didn't feel gimmicky. Like I said, it's not a ghost story. It's not. I don't want it to ever feel gimmicky. There's a part in the Book of Reservations where my character is reluctant to tell somebody about the ghosts in her life because she doesn't want to treat them as parlor tricks. And so I certainly grappled with that. Wanting my book to appeal to people who believe as well as, to be interesting to people who don't yet believe or who don't, just have no experience with this, with thinking about this world. So it was, coming up with this kind of this rule book for the spirit world, keeping it consistent and as realistic as it can be, with the understanding that, there it's not the tangible on this side of the veil reality. It's something else entirely.
Miss Laura, as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, my short-term goal is to finish the third book in this trilogy, which I'm currently working on. I'm fairly far along in a draft of it. That's my short-term goal, and then I have an entirely unrelated book project that I started a couple of years ago that I'm looking forward to getting back to. I'm really grateful that this has been a trilogy, or this is a trilogy, and I've gotten to spend time with these characters and in this world that I've really come to love and embrace. And at the same time, I'm really looking forward to eventually moving into a totally different world. These books are set around the turn of the millennium. The other book that I'd been working on and that I will get back to is set in the present day and is entirely different. There will be no ghosts in that book, and I just wanna keep writing. I wanna keep writing novels. I love it. I want to Another one of my goals, I find short fiction incredibly challenging, and I have a couple of short stories that I've started that I'm really, gonna make a concerted effort in the new year to complete drafts of, because I think that's an entirely different skill set from novel writing short fiction. So I just want to keep writing in every format whether it's novels, short fiction, my blog posts, my newsletters. This has become what I do, my livelihood and my raison d'être, and I'm happy to keep doing it. And I'm very fortunate that I get to keep doing it and that I have great support for my writing.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Laura, and looking forward for more
Thank you.
success. And what will be your piece of
Thank you
advice?
so much.
Yes, no worries. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Who want to be writers, I say write. Show up. Don't be afraid of the blank page. Don't be afraid of writing the really, really messy first draft of anything, whether it's a personal essay, a novel, a trilogy, whatever it is. You have to write that messy first draft in order to have something to sculpt. So don't be afraid of imperfection. Know that writing is something that one gets better at the more one does it, and the more one reads, certainly, and consumes stories, one becomes a better storyteller. So consume everything you can get your hands on and write, and let yourself make mistakes and let yourself be messy, and know that that is the necessary first step in order to get to the finished product. And also, revisions are your friend. You're going to have to do a lot of revising, and there can be great joy and satisfaction in doing that.
Yes, and thank you for that advice, Miss Laura. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Books that influenced my journey, was
Yes,
that?
please. Yes.
Uh, um, I mean, I've been a voracious reader since I was a child, and I read a lot of contemporary fiction now. I've read a lot of the classics. I was an English major, so I read all of, a lot of the classics in my schooling, and I'm actually enjoying getting back into them. Getting back into, just gotten back into Edith Wharton's House of Mirth, which is a beautiful book and a fun book, and takes place in New York City in part. Um, and Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I read a lot of things that are unlike the books that I write. So I read a lot of. Well, I love Joan Didion's writing. I love Edith Wharton. I love certainly Jane Austen. Getting back to the classics, and then contemporary writers. I love Anne Patchett and Elizabeth Strout and Jennifer Egan's, and I could go on and on and on. I love books, and I think there's value in, no matter what one's taste is, in reading and consuming stories.
Thank you for that recommended books, Miss Laura. And in writing about reservations and ghostly tables, did you find yourself confronting or reserving any personal themes you'd had not planned to explore?
Well, yes, actually. I lost my father while I was writing the Book of Reservations, so that amped up the grief portion of it. Grief is a big part of the Coat Check Girl, the first book in the trilogy. Um, Grief in different forms was a part of the Book of Reservations, and then when I lost my father, I found myself, obviously sitting with my grief there and really mining it, and all of the different manifestations of grief and all of the different ways. You know, there are two characters in the Book of Reservations who are dealing with two very different types of grief. One, like my grieving for my father, is, she describes it as pure and uncomplicated. It was a long life well lived and a peaceful departure, and the grief is just evidence of the strength of the love. The other, it was a very different set of circumstances, and it was messy and wild and unexpected. And there are as many ways to grieve as there are types of people in the world, which is to say, infinite. So I found myself thinking a lot more about all of that, and about the fact that grief, as individual as it is, it is something that unites us, that grounds us firmly to one another. It's something that all warm-blooded mammals experience, and it's really, uh, I think we can connect deeply to others when we can understand that. that it really is something that can unite us if we let it.
Miss Laura, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101, our fourth season, science 101, sex 101, second season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Bible Verses 101, and Entrepreneurship 101. And please listen to them wherever you
My goodness, you
listen.
are prolific.
Thank you. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Lara, when readers finish the final page of the entire trilogy, what is the primary message or feeling about life, death, or choice you hope they are left with?
That I hope they're left with great comfort in the idea that energy is eternal and that our loved ones are never truly gone. And I hope that they also take away, as I mentioned before, that we are not beholden to the events of our lives and to past mistakes. Um, I strongly believe that people can change and overcome limiting behaviors and limiting beliefs. And I want people to leave with a sense of optimism and promise.
Optimism and promise and spirituality is eternal. Miss Laura, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world
My
through
pleasure.
your books. So can you please invite our listeners to support your or all your books?
Yes, absolutely. And so you can follow me on my website, laurabuchwald.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Laura Buchwald because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Laura, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Monica, people, see you soon.